thoughtful ideas and suggestions for guests and topics.
Great events, programs, and student activities.
All the factors are useful.
Welcome to this week's segment of Dialogue Houston. I'm your host, Lawrence Payne. To our regular viewing audience, welcome. To those joining us perhaps for the first time here for HCC's TV Dialogue Houston, we're here now every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 a.m. and again at 6 p.m., Saturday afternoons at 3 p.m. As always, in top of the hour, let me thank you for your thoughtful calls, emails, and text messages concerning previous shows we've aired here on HCC's TV Dialogue Houston. For after all, this is your community affairs, public affairs show, now proudly in its 27th season. We want you to really also say that I'm happy to hear from so many of you about suggestions for topics and guests and subjects for upcoming shows. If you've been watching Dialogue Houston through the beginning of COVID-19, almost from the start, and doing this virtual world that we've been doing, we also have now a special segment of a special edition that we feature on Dialogue Houston with our wonderful partners and friends from the Houston Public Library. And this particular segment is called Living in New Knowledge. And Living in New Knowledge takes its name from this little wonderful card here called your link card, which is your public library card. And by the way, if you don't have a link card, you should get it. Very simply, L-I-N-K, Living in New Knowledge, your link card, because it does link you with all kinds of things. It is a regular basis that we do this with HPL because we want you to know the great work and opportunities that new knowledge that's available to you at your Houston Public Library. Serving the citizens of Houston since 1904, it is truly our link to the world. And you can have access to all the resources of the library by just reaching out on the internet and going to the website and getting your library card if you do not have one. And it is a very important piece of the puzzle, particularly now in COVID-19, to be able to access all the wonderful resources that are available just by having this wonderful little card. You may also call 832-393-1313, and that will also connect you with who you need to do. Or go to the website, houstonlibrary.org, very simple. So here we go, and this week, and I'm so happy and proud to have her as our guest. We had her on Dialogue Houston. She said it was a while ago, we won't talk about how long ago, but it was a while ago probably. Time goes by so quickly. And that is our good friend, none other than our good friend, Nicole Robinson, who is the Assistant Director of the Houston Public Library. Welcome, Nicole.
Thank you, Larry, so much. I really appreciate this opportunity, and thank you to the Houston Community College System and Dialogue Houston for giving us this very important platform to talk about something that is so critical to our students' future.
Thank you. We have a lot to talk about today, so I want to use time wisely. We're going to focus on the digital divide. And the digital divide, as we know, was always with us, always around us, but so much exacerbated now, so much prevalent, so much awareness, and so much out there so clearly with COVID-19. So let's just begin by asking this. Define, because I think it's always important when we start talking about a subject, let's define for us what we mean in this context, the digital divide.
Absolutely, and you may hear it referred to as digital divide or digital inclusion, but essentially what that just means is that the gap between those who have access to computers and the internet and those that do not. And the result of that are the educational, the economic, and social inequalities that happen as a result of not having that access.
Well, that leads us to a very important question to do a deeper dive. So what is the current state of affairs and impact here in Houston as it pertains to the digital divide?
Oh, absolutely. And I will say, you prefaced this in your opening remarks. We've been talking about the digital divide now for over 30 years. And while there definitely have been gains, there is still significant work to be done. When we think about the fact that over 20 million U.S. households do not have access to computers and broadband internet access, nor do they have the digital readiness to utilize those skills. And when we bring that home to Houston, we're saying 52% of people living in Harris County do not have access to broadband. And then within the Houston Independent School District, the largest school district within the state of Texas, 180,000 households do not have access to broadband, nor 38% of those don't have computers. And so, as you said, the COVID pandemic has really elevated what has always been a significant issue. And when we think about the fact that there's been disruption with schooling, the foundational skills of our young pre-K to second graders, that's happening as a result of COVID. Many of our students, particularly our Black and Brown students, are at least a grade level behind. We've got some serious catching up to do, as well as the fact that when we think about the Houston Public Library and many city facilities and the work that we're doing, that there is the need to be able to still take advantage of the access that we provide. How do we still connect to those families and make sure that they have the resources that they need? So we're very proud of the fact that we were able to pivot and be able to navigate in this new normal.
And that's so important because, as you mentioned now on the summer slide, as we refer to it, when kids are out of school in the summer, but now because of COVID, there's a COVID slide.
That's right.
And that number one statistic that you were alluding to, if a child is not reading at grade level by the third grade, that just automatically changed their future and perspective for their future so greatly. And that is happening to so many of our children right now.
That's right. That's exactly right. Which again, as you said, I mean, the digital divide has been here, but it is now exacerbated by the pandemic. And I would say the ugliness of this pandemic has been further exposed as a result of that. And so I am very proud of the fact that the Houston Public Libraries, like libraries across the nation, have pivoted to ensure that we can still make sure that our communities, our children, have access to these very important resources to make sure that they can still compete and succeed in school.
Yes, indeed. HPL has really stepped up and stepped into that in a great way. So let's talk about the current reality of the federal, state, City of Houston's response and solution, because a lot of it always, unfortunately, always has to do with funding. And so let's kind of move into that area.
No, absolutely. So we are very fortunate in the City of Houston to have a mayor like Sylvester Turner, who really understands the importance of equity, who wants to ensure that we're not living in two cities, a city of haves and a city of have-nots, and is supported by a great council that also believes in that as well. And so we're proud to be able to align with the mayor's Complete Communities initiative, which is centered on the fact of providing that equity and making sure, regardless as to where you live within the City of Houston, that you have access to quality education and resources that are available through the city departments like the Houston Public Library. And so that's number one, and that has to be critical, right? That you have that leadership at the top. And again, very proud of the fact that our mayor really understands that. And so, and we have a director, and Dr. Rhea Lawson, the director of the Houston Public Library, who also believes in that vision. And so what we've tried to do is to utilize the funding that's been made available through the CARES Act as an example. So you've got the COVID, coronavirus aid, relief, and economic security funding that's available, which has been really critical to make sure that libraries, city entities, and departments will continue to have the resources they need to help our communities. And so for us, that's been a shift to technology and making sure that we can undergird and further strengthen our infrastructure as it relates to technology to be able to support our communities. And the way in which we're doing that is, one of our programs is our mobile hotspot program, which is lending Wi-Fi hotspots to those households that don't have connectivity, and making sure that they have the reliability of being able to do their homework or to be able to find jobs and find work still during this time. We check them out just like we check out books. And so there is an extended period of 3 weeks, though, that we allow those families to be able to take advantage of those hotspots. We're also proud of the fact that we have been able to secure additional laptops. And so in our partnership with the Mayor's Office of Education, the Mayor's Office of Complete Communities, the Mayor's Office of Resiliency, we are putting together an opportunity to have what we're saying, take home technology kits, which would include the Wi-Fi hotspot as well as the computer laptop, to be able to have that complete package to support our communities and our end users in that way. Another resource that we're proud of is kind of this whole concept around Park and Learn, which is essentially transforming our libraries into super hotspots. And we will be identifying 10 of those across the city, again, targeting complete communities. In order to do that, we have completed one already in the Acres Homes community, and we have 9 others to go. So those are just a few examples of how we are utilizing that CARES Act funding to support our communities. We also transitioned to a service that we call Hpl To Go, which is maybe a more familiar COVID term of curbside service. And so individuals can still request materials, can still request those Wi-Fi hotspots and those devices that I mentioned by calling the library at the 832-393-1313 number that you gave, or going online to notify and make a reservation. And all they have to do is drive up, walk up, bike up, if you will, in order to be able to pick up those materials. And we're trying to make sure that in addition to having those materials, that we're also sharing other activities and kits for those students, as well as important information for the city about maybe census, as an example, that's just happened that was so important, or where you can vote in Houston, which was, definitely important as well, or where you might be able to benefit from a COVID test, and resources that the city is making available to help support those needs.
That's a lot. We cover a lot. The Houston Public Library always said to know us is to love us. And people don't realize how many things are available and accessible through your public library. And I think that was a great, wonderful list of stuff. So this thing you have a wonderful program called Liftoff to Learning.
Yes.
Which I love that name. That's just, you're already ascending into the heights with your educational process. Tell us a little bit about Liftoff to Learning.
Sure. As part of our effort to pivot and to make sure that we're not only reaching those families that have access to technology, but again, those that are a part of this digital divide, we know that while households may not have computers in their home, over 90% of households have televisions. And so we reached out to one of our longstanding partners, KHOU Channel 11 here in Houston, Dale Lockett and Millicent and that team, and said, hey, we want to make sure that we are still able to reach our community. We're able to reach these households that don't have access to technology, but are able to look at their local television stations. How can you help? And I will say that they, really stepped up and welcomed the challenge. This is the first time that you've had a collaboration between a library, at least within the city of Houston, where you've had a collaboration with a library and a local television station that collaborated in this way. And so many of the Houston Public Library programs, story times, and STEM that we would typically do in person, we have now shifted to making videos that are available so that people can still access them online via our website and YouTube. And so through Liftoff to Learning, essentially, we recorded these videos that were made available to the viewing audience of Channel 11 as part of the Deborah Duncan's Great Day Houston show. So the last 5 minutes of that show, daily, Monday through Thursday, at the end of the show, it segued into Liftoff to Learning. And that segment focused on, again, STEM education, really trying to hone in on those students who during the summer, you referenced the summer slide, that we could still give them access to books and access to learning, still have interactive activities that they can still be engaged in, and their parents who now have the onus of being responsible for homeschooling and making sure that they can still attain these skills and the knowledge that they need. And so at the conclusion of this program, which ran during the summer over an 11-week period, we reached over 20 million households as a result. And we were very proud of the fact that Dale shared with us that the numbers for the Great Day Houston show elevated. Typically towards the end of the show, they would trail off, but they were able to see a spike in the results of the Liftoff to Learning program. So that program showed a number of things. One, what's possible when community partners come together to make a difference, to help to advance community priorities, and also elevating the role of libraries in helping to advance those priorities. And so we're very proud of that. We're talking about more to come. I will say that as part of that collaboration, we partner with Houston TV, and we will have a program available on Houston TV as well. So again, our goal is to make sure that we're still able to reach those households without the technology so that they can continue to still benefit from the excellent programming and resources that the library has.
You mentioned in passing a minute ago one of my favorite programs, and at church just this past weekend, a single mother with 3 children said to me, "I just found story time."
Yes.
And story time has saved her as she tries to educate her 3 young children. And she loves story time, and she loves the creativity that is put into it by the staff members of HPL. Tell us about story time, because it's really a wonderful access.
No, absolutely. And I will say that in times of adversity, you're forced to learn a lot about yourself, right?
Right.
And I would say that the Houston Public Library team really pivoted in terms of utilizing their talents and their skills to be able to shift to this in-person planning and implementation to online. And so they did it in such a spectacular way. I want to say that we probably have over 400 plus videos that are available now as a result of the team working to make sure that those storytime programs are there and available, as well as many of the other STEM programs. But with Storytime, it's about being able to still connect, finding the right book. We have so many testimonials from parents who said, thank you, as you alluded to, thank you for helping us to still be able to share the joy and love of reading with our children. We know that our parents are our first teacher, and so being able to have them to still engage in that way. But those segments were recorded by staff and who have a knowledge, of course, of the book itself, have been trained in how to read stories, because there is an art, right, to be able to still engage. And so making sure that it can still be an enjoyable experience and still a learning experience as well.
And some of the talent that we've seen displayed by some of the staff members, that their creativity, kind of like, who knew there's an actor there, an actor.
That's right. We've got a lot of stars.
waiting to come out, and we gave them a platform to do that. So that was
wonderful. That's right.
So before we get to that point where we're slowly running out of time, let's talk about the future. So tell us what does the future look like as we go forward in this reality of trying to leave, everyone wants to leave 2020 behind and move into 2021 with great joy and gusto. What are we looking like here in the future?
Well, you know, what I'm hopeful as it relates to the digital divide, again, what the pandemic has done is put the digital divide at the forefront. And again, grateful for those conversations, and people are talking about how to support schools, how to support libraries in a way that they hadn't done. And so we want to still continue to build on that momentum and encourage the conversations to continue happening. We encourage your viewers to talk to their local congressmen and ask that they support libraries. We have a couple of acts. We've got the HEROES Act, which is another CARES Act funding package of relief, but includes monies for libraries to continue to provide the technology and the devices to make available to communities. We also have the Library Stabilization Act, which is another act, again, to support the access to technology that so many people rely on within our public library. So we want people to continue to demonstrate their advocacy, that civil engagement that we saw so robustly during this last election. So to continue to focus on the need for getting the monies and the funding for libraries. And then locally, I'm very excited. The mayor has put together several task forces, and one of them is a technology subcommittee, and working with local internet service providers who have really rallied around and making sure that we have schools that have devices and the connectivity that is needed. And so we want that to continue to happen during this time and beyond. So we are excited about that. For the Houston Public Library, as I mentioned, again, still thinking innovatively and creatively about programs and the way in which we can offer those programs, still focusing and partnering with our television stations like KHOU and like HTV to make sure that those programs are still accessible and made available, expanding our services like Hpl To Go to more locations, as well as, getting to a point where we can bring people into our libraries by appointment. So we've got mobile to go, click to go. So those are things that are on the horizon that we're really excited about and looking forward to.
You mentioned some movement toward phasing in or opening or providing services creatively to curbside service, but tell us a little bit more about as we kind of go forward phasing in, because it's happening and it's beginning to happen, and there will be more of it going forward. I might add, I want you to comment also on the wonderful groundbreaking of the A-Leaf Community Center, because there will be a new library that's part of that center. And one of our wonderful listeners of Dialogue Houston, who follows this segment particularly on HPL, I mentioned that you were going to be on, and she told me to tell you congratulations and thank you, and Dr. Will Lawson, and wherever else, including Mayor Turner, for their center that they've been waiting on for quite a while out in A-Leaf. But she's more excited about the library that's going to be in the center than she is on anything else. So things are still moving.
Well, absolutely right. I mean, the business of the city is absolutely still happening, but again, it's just the way in which we are making those services available. And we have a phased reopening plan that you referred to, which allows us to be able to slowly and safely, because our staff and our customers, their safety is our first priority. So it allows us to take into consideration all of those factors to make sure that we're absolutely ready and prepared to receive our customers as they make their way back into the library. And so right now, as part of that first phase, we're offering the Hpl To Go service, which is our curbside service, and it's available at 15 of our libraries across the city. And we try to make those services available during the week as well as the weekend to support our working families as well. And now that children are back in school, to be able to support those efforts. And then the next phase of that is what we're referencing as Click to Go, which is the opportunity for individuals to come in by appointment. And so they can make appointments to come in to utilize the computer, thus the click, and be able to pick up other materials as well, and to do that in a way that we can still be safe and support the needs of the community. So we're very excited about that plan, which will be coming later within the year. The Curb to Go, we hope to be able to expand to additional locations throughout the city. So moving that from the current number of 15 to adding at least 5 additional locations. And so that is the plan there. And then of course, integrating the Click to Go by appointment that we hope to be able to bring online soon. We are working, of course, with the mayor and taking his directive as we move forward relative to our reopening plan. And so just again, being very thoughtful and being very, very deliberate as it relates to that plan and how we are moving forward. We are still in the business of the library and in the business of making sure that we can meet the needs of those that we serve. And that involves opening, new libraries. The A-Leaf Library is one that we are extremely proud of. We've always collaborated with the community. This one even more so. And to your viewers, particularly the person who called in to say thank you to us, we thank the community for giving us the feedback and the input, but also being patient because it has been a while. But this library is special. It's special in so many respects in that, number one, you've got 3 public-facing departments that are collaborating together with the library. You've got parks as well as health, and this is the first time that we've ever had that for the city. We all serve the same constituents, and so again, in this effort of trying to better streamline services, to be better stewards of our taxpayer dollars, we are very excited to showcase this first time collaboration in this way. And then for the Houston Public Library, it will be one of our components in it that we're excited in terms of digital 21st century technology. So we're extremely excited about that as well.
And collaborations and partnerships going forward is the norm because that's the way things happen. And speaking of public-private partnerships, the great Montrose Library that is being built as we speak in the building there on the corner of Wall Drive and Westheimer is a great example of that because that is another one of those great partnerships, public-private partnerships that are making that happen. And so that creativity and initiative that we all see happening in the time, not only in the pivoting, as you said, because of COVID, but we were pivoting before COVID to get creative on how you began to access and expand the services of your public, our public library. That's important. The public library is the most cherished thing we have as citizens in a democracy, and how we utilize it and how we develop it and grow it and make it part of our own by neighborhood, community by community becomes so important. It was before. Going forward, it's going to be even more so because as you and I have talked before, libraries were beginning to move away from just books. Everything was beginning to move more to the technical and digital world anyway. But now it gives us a chance, as you said, to really think through what does that vision look like and what does libraries look like going forward.
Well, thank you, Larry. And again, I appreciate the platform and the opportunity to talk about the digital divide and to talk about the role that libraries play and will continue to play in making sure that our communities are connected. We are helping individuals to get the technology skills that they need so that they can find work, so that they can do better in school, so that they can really be able to compete and succeed. And so again, access to technology is critical. I like for it to be a public utility, right? That is the end goal. The end goal is really about digital equity for all. And so we want this to really resonate with individuals. And so again, proud of the fact of the work that our city is doing in our mayor, in his leadership, as well as within the Houston Public Library, and helping to serve as that digital connector. In many, many cases, Larry, the Houston Public Library is the only place in the community where you can get free access to technology. We are the largest provider of free internet access, as well as the skills training that is so necessary in order to take advantage of that access. And so again, we're proud to be that digital connector now and in the future, and look forward to many more opportunities to collaborate and ensure that, again, we have that digital equity for all Houstonians.
Well, I want to thank you, Nicole, for being on this segment of Dialogue Houston, the Living in New Knowledge part of the HPL program. We're going to continue to do this as we go forward and to feature different aspects of the Houston Public Library, and we look forward to you joining us. Again, thank you, Nicole Robinson. Special thanks to Dr. Rhea Lawson, our wonderful director of the HPL, and of course to Mayor Turner, who helps makes all this happen in the way that we're trying to proceed forward. Okay, equity, you got it. Dividing resources proportionally to achieve a fair outcome. Equity, justice and fairness. Equity, going forward, is the issue into 2021. It has always been, and it will continue to be until we truly achieve equity. And we have to realize that equity is one of those issues that in a public space, a public library and a public space, a trusted public space, the dialogues around what that looks like through critical conversations and civic engagement will continue. And we're going to be part of that going forward. Again, we look forward to you joining us in the future. We have to get out of here for now. Until then, as always, be safe, be well, and until then, peace, power, and love.